let me come back to something you've also talked about. You have very little stuff out there currently,
Mhm.
but the things you have out there, your thoughts, you could just tell how deeply you think about this world.
Mm.
And one of the things you mentioned is as you learn about this world, is that as you read, as you sort of go through different experiences, that that you're open to changing your mind. How often do you find yourself changing your mind? Do you think Zev from 10 years into the future will look back at this conversation we're having now and disagree completely with everything you just said?
It's entirely possible, and that's one of the things that scares me so much about appearing publicly. I think that the internet can be very intolerant of inconsistency, and I am entirely prepared to be very inconsistent because I know that whatever beliefs I have when subjected to scrutiny may change, because that's really the only way to form your truest, most fundamental conceptions about the world around you. And it would take an infinite amount of time to subject every single one of your beliefs to scrutiny. And so that's a process that must follow me throughout my entire life. And I know that means that my opinions and perspectives are always to be changing. I'm prepared to accept that about myself. Whether other people are prepared to accept that my public opinions may change and vary greatly over time is something I don't know. I don't know how tolerant the world will be, but I'm very prepared to change anything I believe in if I think deeply enough about it or a good enough argument is made so that I might reconsider.
Well, there certainly is currently an intolerance, and that's one of the problems of our age. There's an intolerance towards change. And I'll also ask you about labels. You talked about sort of we like to bin each other into different categories, blue or red or whatever the different categorization is. But it seems like the task before you as a young person defining our future is to make a tolerance of change the norm. Doing this podcast, for example, and then changing your mind 1 or 2 years later and doing so publicly without a big dramatic thing, or maybe changing it on a daily basis, and just being open about it and being transparent about your thought process. Maybe that is the beacon of hope for the philosophical way, the path of the philosopher. So that's your task in a sense, is to change your mind openly and bravely.
You know, you're right. And maybe I will just have to endure some sort of criticism for doing that. But I think that's very important. I think this ties back to this previous facet of our conversation where we were discussing if thinkers would win over systems that are devoted to preventing radical thought, or if who will win, the systems or the thinkers. I think it's crucial that my generation take up a hand in this fight, and I think it's important that I'm a part of that because I know that I have some opportunity to. I think it is my obligation as a member of a generation whose only real hope is to think outside of a system, because whatever systems exist are collapsing. I think it is really my obligation to try to play some role, whatever role I can, in being an instrument in that change.